Hello, everybody. This is your host, Julian Camacho, a.k.a. Jules. And before we start the show, I want to formally apologize to all my listeners out there for the massive delay between episodes 7 and 8. To say the least, I've been ridiculously busy working on videos for Championship Fighting Alliance, G Saint Swimwear, SX Liquors, working on the Animal Planet, 2 more editing projects, and I'm working on a screenplay. So it's just a lot of things have been pulling me in different directions. However, I finally have some time now, so I'm going to do everything I can to deliver a podcast episode at least once a week, most likely on Mondays. And because I do the podcast through Skype, I can have anyone as a guest online. So if you're interested, message me on Turns Out Productions or through my personal Facebook, Julian Camacho, and let's make it happen. I'm totally down with meeting new people and bringing a show that they would themselves would like to promote. So if you have an album coming out, a gallery opening coming up, and you want to plug it in, totally let's make it happen. And even if you don't have anything you want to plug in, if you just want to express some thoughts on whatever, by all means. What I love about podcasts is that they provide voices for those that usually don't have a platform, and that's exactly the whole point. So by all means, message me, and we will set it up. So without any further delay, let's get the show started. And thank you once again for downloading or listening through YouTube. I appreciate any comments you want to leave. Unless they're negative, keep them to yourselves. Otherwise, enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Turns Out Podcast. And now your host, Julian Camacho.
And welcome to the Turns Out Podcast. I'm your host, Julian Camacho, a.k.a. Jules. And with me is Felix the Cat Thompson. And he's going to be pretty much a resident comic expert, because that's what he is. And as you all know, I am obsessed with Batman and other comic franchises, and I love this trend of comic book films coming out. So I think it's appropriate that we assemble for the
see what you did there.
for this special Avengers review podcast. So say hello, Felix.
Hello, everybody. This is Felix, resident comic book geek. That's pretty much a claim to fame.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like Donald Glover says, Black nerdom is at an all-time high today, and I'm really glad that it is. Just nerdom in general. It's becoming we're pretty much dominating entertainment right now. It feels like all shows, movies, and even music to a certain degree has a much more kind of, alternative, hip to be square kind of direction. Even fashion. I mean, right now, what does a hot chick look like versus what a hot chick looked like in the 80s or the 90s? You know, it was kind of the blonde cheerleader look, and now those same blonde cheerleaders are, putting on cardigans and oversized glasses,
Well, I've never been attracted to blondes.
Well, you know what I mean.
Just because I'm difficult to please.
Yeah.
But I completely understand where you're coming from that.
I'm probably going to have a whole podcast dedicated to the anti-blonde cultural movement, but aesthetically as well. I too am not, I love all women's. Don't get me wrong, but
look, all women deserve to be loved. Let's agree on that. I'm just saying, blondes got to try a little bit harder.
There's a reason why Lannisters are blonde, and the reason
keep that blood pure.
The only way we know how. No, that's exactly though like my point. Where as far as aesthetics, I mean, when I say the hot blonde model, what have you, of course I'm talking on society's behalf, right? But now like all the main characters are like these brunette girls, and the villains are always like the female blondes with really kind of angular faces and
now they're all the protagonists, if you will, the I guess underdog female is the quirky brunette with the bangs and the big huge eyes who everybody loves, and deep down she's a geek just like the rest of the guys. And I'm okay with that. I like that.
I'm a big fan of that message, but
I can only watch so many movies or shows with Zooey Deschanel playing Zooey.
Yeah,
Deschanel.
I was gonna just say that that same. That's that same cute brunette with the big eyes, off camera she's still smoking hot, and she would never date either of us. However, keeping that
not. She is a bitch, but she is hot.
Keeping that illusion alive, though, I think is important.
Absolutely, you gotta have goals that you can never attain.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, as humans, we always reach outside our grasp, but
Always. Life isn't worth living if you can grab what you're aiming for.
I don't want to be in a club that'll have me as a member. So yeah, it's all part of the same.
Well, I'm black, so I don't expect most clubs to ever have me as a member. But
somehow that's reverse racist, but I like it. It is. I like it.
I want to complain about never being in the country club, but at no point prior to that in my life did I ever have aspirations about joining a country club.
Right.
I want it because I can't have it. And the moment they give it to me, I'd be like, fuck you, Jack, and then just walk away.
Yeah.
I like to believe that was the real reason that Tiger Woods tried so hard to play golf, but then he realized as he was about to throw the jacket down and say, fuck you, he was like, I spent a lot of time trying to win the Masters. They got me. That's a really huge check.
I like to think that he got his real revenge by sexing all them white women's. That's really the ultimate.
I'm gonna say I like to believe that's some kind of reverse reparation. I like to believe like he just came in and was just like, I got this, and on my way out, I'm gonna take whatever free shit you got and all the white women's you have laying around.
It's the Steve Martin from The Jerk, where he's just kind of grabbing everything, saying it's his. Like, all right, that's it. I'm leaving. This is mine, and that's it. I'm gone. Okay, well, this too, and okay, that's it. All right, well, that's also mine, but then that's it. I'm out of here. Like, like you just kept.
God, I love that movie.
Collecting. Is it again?
I said I love that
classic,
movie.
Absolute classic. Well, let's not waste any more time and get things started here. So, Avengers. Let's start off with just the most broad assessment. How did you feel overall about the movie?
I'll go about it two ways. As a huge comic book fan, I am never pleased with any comic book movie that comes out. It took me a while to just come to the conclusion, because it was a long time when I would watch these comic book films and I'd be like, that never happened in the comics, and I'd be that guy like nerd raging, and then someone like dawned on me. I read an article and I can't remember where I read it, but the author of the article pretty much said, what if we just treated every movie like it was an alternate dimension, one-shot comic that was retelling everything? And I was like, that'd be awesome if they didn't do such a shitty job. But that at least gave me some semblance of, you know what, he's got a point. Maybe this is just their own specific retailing, like branding of the film for a movie sequence.
I mean, like you'll read Elseworld comics, right? You'll read.
Yeah, absolutely. I like reading the Elseworlds and the What Ifs.
So this is a lot less of a stretch. What if these people were played by humans, and what if they did it 2 hours long? Like that's.
I agree. And the thing about it, and this is why I had some hesitations about the film. And the reason why is because they always do the same thing they do for every comic book film. Any film, not even comic books, based on, movies, old TV shows, old books, current books, it doesn't matter. They always do the same thing. So we're taking this intellectual property, and we're really going to roll with it. We're going to redefine the way blah, 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 blah works. And then they always, they do the thing for the press junket where they interview the huge actor in the film. And the first words out of this actor's mouth is, because they always ask, so did you ever read The Phantom growing up? And I'm sure Billy Zane was like, yeah, I love The Phantom growing up. I read all these Phantom comics and my favorite part about The Phantom is the purple. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they'll mention one thing that really doesn't add to the characters.
yeah, things that have nothing to do with it. Felix, quick question. What do you got going on in the background? It feels like there's like a witch or a vampire creeping up behind you. Like, it doesn't sound like an actual sound effect.
That is probably my tower.
Okay.
Does it sound like a wind?
It's gone now. I was going to ask you if maybe you had a fan.
Oh, that was probably just me rocking around in my chair. It's actually very creaky.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, me too. I actually got
I'm gonna try and stay as still as possible.
I got my podcast chair, which I can't roll around in. So cool, but it's gone now. So I'm sorry. Please continue. But I mean, that's essentially the truth, though. I mean, I loved in Entourage when Vincent Chase was going to play Aquaman, and like that one nerd that like totally slammed him online about his casting, and like he asked him to interview, which is your favorite writers of Aquaman, and he mentions one of the female writers and says how it requires a woman's sensitive perspective to really capture the character. Basically, this like really like canned and obviously not written by him response, but it was exactly what the nerd wanted to hear, and he almost had like a nerdgasm right then and there. And it's like,
I agree, and you rarely ever get that. It's like even like when I even really think about it, even my favorite portrayals of some superheroes. Very rarely do I ever get like that feedback, and I don't need that feedback. Like I'm not looking for them to. You're a professional. You have been paid to do a job. Your job is to do your best portrayal of that character based on the script you've been given. I don't need you to tell me you've read 50,000 comic books. The only reason why is because like it's like that weird trust thing. It's like that guy who's like, I want to show you a magic trick, but first I need you to close your eyes and take off your clothes. You're like, wait.
Yeah, and open your mouth.
And I mean, if somebody else told you that, you'd be like, hey, come on, bro. But if Copperfield told you, you'd be like, oh, I'm about to get a fucking illusion. Like, there's that trust level. And that's all I'm really looking for, to just kind of have that little bit of trust, like, just like, oh, all right, I can kind of trust them. And with the Avengers, it was a little bit easier for me to get into that because I was like, Avengers, this movie's going to fucking blow. Who's writing it or directing it? Joss Whedon. I'm sold. I'm going to buy 50.
Yeah, exactly. Because I want to be able to stretch in the theater, and I don't want people to be able to talk to me.
Yeah, I don't want anybody near me. So that was my hesitation just going into the film, where I didn't know how they were going to handle it, but at the same time, like, it's such a monumental film. This isn't like... this isn't a Dark Knight, because, that just takes one amazing actor, one amazing, crew, director or writer to kind of take that one character's mythos and put it together. But with the Avengers, you have all these unique characters, and to put them together in a single film, it honestly almost seems impossible. It's like you're either going to have one really good, strong character and a lot of, like, characters bringing up the rear. Like,
support,
that guy, like, guns blazing and that one guy with a pistol just kind of pat-papping. And as a comic book fan, you just pray that one character with the six-shooter that runs out of ammo 45 seconds into the gunfight is not your
right. I was going to say that, it's very true that the Avengers has several headliners, but, that... I was going to say, for the Dark Knight, I mean, the supporting cast is probably just as important, obviously because it all gives validation to Batman's plight and his mission. And so,
And see, the thing about it is I like to attribute that to, not only do all those characters play a pivotal role, but it was also important that the director and writer of the film understood that and then incorporated them in. And that's kind of the fear with all comic book characters, where people try to write a film or direct a film about a character, not realizing that really when you're directing a comic book film, you're not writing about a character. You're writing about a single character in a world. You're writing about a world and a particular character who highlights that world.
Not only that, you're also one of the biggest challenges I think about all these comic book films is that you're not writing. Even by the way, the majority of films are based on previous existing properties. So a lot of people a lot of people who are talking shit about how today nowadays movies are all based on a remake or a reboot or based on a whatever. It's like, hey, nothing's changed, dude. Sequels and even prequels.
The wheel was invented 1,000 years ago, but we all have different types of tires.
Right, and sometimes we need the winter tires, sometimes we need the all-season purpose tires, and sometimes we need the tractor tires. And what I was going to say about one of the biggest hurdles, or I guess one of the biggest obstacles for these films, that these characters, they're not based on a single book. They're based on literally 60, 70 plus years of history.
Absolutely.
Written by several artists. So all these filmmakers, they're stepping into a room full of people having, one conversation or several, or very, having two or three conversations that they've had for decades. And now they were coming in trying to say something new. And it's like, well, you better have, done your homework before you start. Yeah. And that's essentially, I think, something that filmmakers like Christopher Nolan, like Joss Whedon, they understand enough to, knowing where to respect the lore, and then knowing when to inject their own personal perspective on these characters and their own kind of unique interpretation of the worlds that they inhabit. And I think that
absolutely,
I thought Joss Whedon did a fantastic, amazing job considering all the obstacles.
He did a amazing job. I watched the movie the first time and I was like, oh, that was good. And then it was that second watching of it where it was just like, man, this is fucking good. This was actually really nice. Because, like, you watch a film the first time, you have your expectations, you leave the theater with that, like, kind of afterglow, and you're like, did I really like it? Or it's kind of like you go to a restaurant, you order something, it was amazing the first time you have it, and then you're kind of worried to order it again because you don't think it's ever going to be quite as good.
Right.
Still enjoyable the second watching. It was actually more so when you get to pick out those little things and see some of the other characters more flushed out than what you would have really focused on the first time through, because the first time it's like kid in the candy store. It's like, ooh, what's that?
Right.
What does that taste like? How much is that? I need 5 of those.
I loved how also because the screenplay itself, like the script, is actually hilarious. I mean, as far as the character response and the sarcasm and the witty banter, I thought that on that level it was incredibly well written. And I was going to say, one of the consequences of that is that people laugh over some of the other lines just because they're laughing so much from the previous one. It's the Anchorman effect. So actually, watching it the second time for me, it was like, oh, that's what he said. That's like I didn't hear what Hulk said after he. After he helped somebody. I was actually going to say
final act of the film.
I was going to say I wanted to kind of.
Is this like a no spoiler podcast?
I was just going to say we should,
because that's one of the greatest scenes in film. Ever.
You know what? Let's go ahead and kind of. So overall, you loved the film, correct?
Yes,
excellent.
I did enjoy it.
So if at this point, I think my arm's getting tired from holding back the dogs. I'm gonna go ahead and unveil this and go ahead into spoiler mode.
Alert.
Yeah. So for all you listeners out there who have not been living in this dimension or is trapped under a rock but can still access the internet for some reason, whatever.
I'm gonna say I'm pretty sure there are soldiers in Afghanistan who are being shot at by the Taliban who have somehow found a bootleg copy of this film.
And are seeing it on their iPad. Yeah.
If you want to see it, you should have seen it.
Exactly.
And if not, we've totally given you the spoiler. Like, you can stop listening right now, and I don't mean like close it. I mean put it on pause, go to the movie theater, come back and unpause your computer, and set up some porn to download while you're not at home. That's what I do. That's what all the cool kids do.
From your lips to God's ears, bro. So all right. So for all you kiddies out there that haven't seen it, thanks for listening. What the hell are you doing? Go now to the theater, watch it, and then come back and listen to the rest of the episode. So
absolutely,
we're going to take a little break, and we will be right back. And welcome back to the Turns Out podcast. I'm your host, Jules, and with me is my buddy Felix, and we are talking Avengers. Now, just so you all know, we are in the spoiler zone, so if for some reason you guys missed the last warning, too bad. Turns out at the end, everyone dies.
Everyone. All of them. Same time. They decided to stand in a line, and it was a very sharp and long spear.
Except Coulson. He's the one who survived.
Well, he's got the training, so if anybody can dodge a long,
a long spear,
Deus Ex Machina spear, it would be him.
Speaking of Coulson, have you seen that little that little I guess sketch or short video or short film with Coulson in a gasoline station?
Yes, I have. I actually came across that, and I came across a couple other ones. They were very interesting. I can't remember the name of it, but essentially it was just them doing the Marvel tie-ins, and I guess accurate, like, look at our cars, and look, he buys donuts. But that sequence is very cool, and then also the sequence where he's in the diner speaking to the agent about the consultant. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's was that with Maria Hill or I can't remember.
No, that was where he's speaking to another agent. He goes to a what's called like a little diner inn. It's probably outside of the town where Thor took place, and he's essentially talking to this guy. He's like, well, we spoke to the higher ups, the shadowy figures who again are essentially like the panel that Shield must report to. And during that time, during the Avengers Initiative, they requested that Blonsky, the Abomination from the Hulk film with Edward Norton, was put on the team. And Coulson, of course, is like, we can't put him on the team. He's a time bomb. However, the only person that can release him into our custody would be General Ross. So what we want to do is we want to send a consultant, someone who will rile the general up and piss the general off so much, so smug, so overconfident, that General Ross will deny the request to transfer Blonsky to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s control. And so they go back and forth, and then clearly the way they describe
that's the ending for the Incredible Hulk.
That's how you get the Incredible Hulk ending,
No, that was great. I loved it. One thing I'm going to say about the Avengers, which I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I just can't help it. Even though I thought Mark Ruffalo did a great performance, and possibly the best performance for Dr. David Bruce Banner, or Bruce David Banner. Is that his full name?
David Bruce, but everybody calls him Bruce. It's rare I've ever heard anyone call him David. It was more like what's his name, Bixby, the actor during
the 70s.
Yeah, he really got use out of that name. Even in the comics, his first name is David. It's just no one fucking calls him David, which is weird when you think about it.
It's funny that
Bill Bixby.
The history behind that what do they call him David, because I thought Bruce was too weak of a name.
Which you would assume
was too
is
soft.
very
Which
appropriate.
I'm like, there's the greatest martial artist at the time is named Bruce, and Batman's real name is Bruce. So
those are the two softest men I know.
Yeah.
I mean, if they wanted to have a hard name, they should have called him Percy. That's the name of a titan right there, or at least a demigod. See what I did there? Percy, the lightning thief.
That lightning thief. I really but yeah, no, I as I was watching it, that scene when Robert Downey when Tony Stark was talking to Dr. Banner in the lab and kind of trying to convince him to just kind of embrace the Hulk or whatever, I'm thinking, my God, how much more explosive would that quiet scene feel with Edward Norton exchanging the lines?
I gave this a lot of thought. And if we consider all three actors who played the Hulk, Eric Bana, Edward Norton, and Ruffalo, to be, all within canon, which they kind of are. They never really wrote out any of the previous films. They just kind of built upon them without actually mentioning too much about what happened in them.
They pretty much, I thought Incredible Hulk...
They totally tried to sweep Bana under the rug.
Incredible Hulk, I thought, did a good job with implying that we're going to completely just ignore the existence of the Ang Lee one, whereas the Mark Ruffalo one could be just a recasting of that same
yes and no, but I completely
anyway.
understand where you're coming from. But I think that shows a good progression for the character, and what I mean by that is with Eric Bana, and this is just a portrayal of the film, and I think it's what actors gain from just, so I'm playing the Hulk. And Eric Bana seemed more like that kind of abused child aspect of the Hulk, where he transforms and he's as Stark, a green rage monster. That's exactly what he is. And then you've got Edward Norton's portrayal of the character, and it's I know I can turn into the gigantic rage monster, but I'm trying to learn to kind of control it. I want to
get rid of it, even
put some reins on it. And he definitely wanted to get rid of it. He was trying to cure it. But I think with Ruffalo, it's like that final stage of mourning. It's just fucking acceptance. He's like, I'm a rage monster, but I can also still help people. I'm still, a doctor, for crying out loud. I'm one of the smartest men in the world. Least I can do is use that intelligence to at least try and halfway make up for that. And I think that was the key to Ruffalo's performance as Banner. Right.
That was more of a material. That was because I think Ruffalo had the best material to work with. He had the benefit of that. But you could easily imagine Norton handling the same material and doing it his own way and making it. What I'm saying is,
I know it sounds weird, but this was kind of a theme that was I noticed throughout the film. we didn't never allow the film to get too deep and in on itself, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
because
yeah.
of the humor. And with Norton, like, all these other characters, don't get me wrong, these are all amazing actors. They're good actors. They know what they're doing. They play their roles well. But with Norton, you're just going to go from because I mean, those scenes happen relatively close. So you got Chris Hemsworth saying, he's adopted, and Paul Peters, like, laughing. And then 5 minutes later, you've got Norton potentially going into this Oscar-worthy, like, monologue, like, single scene.
I put a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out. Yeah.
It would have been, don't get me wrong, he would have done a great job delivering that line. I feel it would have been too serious.
I don't know about that, dude. I mean, if you look at what is it, Keeping the Faith and Moments of Fight Club.
True.
I think Edward Norton definitely has comedic chops. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It's not like he turned in an Oscar-worthy performance in The Fucking Italian Job, So it's not like this material's under him.
That film is highly underrated.
This podcast is over.
And we're done. What are you talking about? Mark Wahlberg, greatest actor of our time.
I'm sending you an exploding computer virus as we speak, so don't open up your emails if you check your life. No, yeah. I definitely, and you know what? Those feelings of missing Edward Norton quickly dissipated. As soon as shit started getting real and I started getting into it, and it didn't distract me anymore. But there's always
nerd rage with that, and this is completely outside of the film and of itself. Just the nature, like the diva-ness of Edward Norton. I took him leaving the project very much so the same way I took Terrence Howard not reprising the role in Iron Man 2, where it was like, oh man, this is going to be awesome, shortly followed by, you're kind of being a bit of a douchebag about this. I don't think you deserve the honor.
Well, to be honest, we don't know the numbers, so we don't even know if they were worth fucking over Terrence Howard. But I will say this, dude.
I know. I'm going to say
Don Cheadle's a way better actor.
That was what I was going to say, where it's like one of those things where it's like, I'm sorry, you can't have pudding for dessert. Fuck, really? Are you shitting me? You're going to have chocolate cake and tons of ice cream. Okay. What? I thought I was being punished. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. I love it when Mom gives me good news but masks it as bad news. That's one of my favorite things to do in general. It's like, sorry, dude, I don't have $10. I don't have $10 on me, so I'm going to have to lend you a 20. What? So
I'm sorry that you got a B. I know you worked really hard in that class, so I think you need some time to just kind of think about that at Disney World.
Or I was going to say, it's like, sorry, so yeah, it looks like Rachel Dawes is coming back for the second movie. Oh, but we recasted Maggie Gyllenhaal. Yeah! You know what? I actually had a cool little thought of, how George Lucas goes back and like replaced Anakin with Hayden Christensen at the end of Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
Or how he added more dewbacks in the background of like the Tatooine scenes or whatever.
Pretty much everything he's ever done to all of the previous films he's directed.
Yeah, whatever. Better for worse. I think he's utilizing a very interesting tool of going back and making things more consistent. And I actually had a lovely thought of what if Christopher Nolan, not only does he have super control over the final product for these movies, so if he wanted to, he totally could have like a special edition where he completely just edits out Katie Holmes from Batman Begins and adds Maggie Gyllenhaal, which is funny because
good. I wouldn't even be upset about that.
No one would be upset.
I kind of want that to happen.
Dude, it would be hilarious because
at first I didn't think I was going to agree with what you were proposing, but now I think I'm in love with the idea.
And if you actually go back and watch all of Christopher Nolan films, he rarely has a scene with two people sharing the screen. It's always like shot, reverse shot.
It's almost as though he secretly wants to recast all of his films at a later date. I hope he gets really old and narcissistic and recast all of his films with himself playing every role.
No, that'd be hilarious.
Or Gary Oldman playing every role. I could get behind that.
I too can get behind that. No, I'm thinking that he actually explained why he does that in one of the commentaries. I think it was for I think it was either for Memento or I think it was for Memento, where he talked about how for production purposes it's a lot easier to arrange to do it that way so that there's more he has a little more latitude in the editing room. But anyway, back to Marvel, back to the Avengers.
Back to the Avengers.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in the Avengers Tower,
Avengers Mansion. Just saying.
Well, actually, at the very end of...
Yeah, but that's just kind of a play on Stark Towers.
You'll see.
Stark,
It's going to turn into the Avengers. Isn't there an Avengers Tower?
It's not so much an Avengers Tower as much as Stark just kind of leases his tower to them. Which you kind of... I always feel weird
Doesn't
about that in
that
comics
technically...
because, like, it's a lot like the Baxter Building for the Fantastic Four. Like, these are massive buildings. These buildings are, like, 50, 60 stories tall. Even if you, like, never wanted to shit on the same floor twice, like, how much room could you really use in a building that size?
Hey, man, they have all those extra assistants and all that food they got a storage for Hulk. I'm sure they'll put good uses to him. And not to mention the fact that, you know, it could still act as Stark Tower. Like, you could still have, like, Stark employees.
It absolutely would. I'm just saying, like, it's kind of weird in that sense where... It's just such a massive building.
It's got to be tall, all right, bro? We got to see it from the Empire State Building. I'm not going to just, you know, Google map it to check it out. Although, that being said, if you look at it from the top, it probably spells out Avengers. I'm sure he would do some
I wouldn't put that past him at all.
Neither. Yeah. He's got my favorite type of vanity because it's all, like,
say there's
justified.
One thing that, and even in the comics, I've always been not really, like, confused, but always kind of worried. I like to believe that Tony Stark just barely makes enough money over the red line, because in all of these films, you know, his suits are getting wrecked, and understandably, like, he's taking on fucking armies and getting destroyed and leveled. Even in the comics, same deal. And then he just kind of cranks out another fucking suit of armor. And I'm not saying that, like, he's not good at the process. Like, you know, maybe he's buying, like, straight just material costs and fabricating everything, but, like, those suits have to cost at least $1 billion a piece, and he's on fucking 7 now. Like, I mean, I'd like to believe that's why he's not richer than Bruce Wayne, because, I mean, Bruce Wayne has got tech, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really cost that much to repair a suit of that caliber versus fucking...
Right, getting some, like, what... I mean,
pretty much a human-sized mech. Is what
I was gonna say, does he?
Into.
What's it? Is it like made of like vibranium or what? What's
every now and then it changes from things to things. You know, you've got vibranium. Sometimes it's certain ceramic plates. Other times they're nano machines that are inside the hollows of his bones, which is one of the creepiest aspects. Like, it was during the Extremist comic book story, and he stores his suit inside of the hollows of his bones, which, you know, medical science would immediately disprove, but from a comic book standpoint, very awesome.
Can the nanites do the job that Marrow does?
They could, but it just, like, I'm just saying, like, it's one of those things where just observing it, like, you being a fellow superhero, you show up to fight, you know, you're Captain America, you've got your shield, you're Wolverine, you pull out your claws, you turn next to you, and Tony Stark is just like, hold on a second. And then, like, his suit just kind of goos out of him and forms, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. But that's
I was going to say, like, what if it, like, comes out his nose and eyes and asshole, and he's just like...
I'm sure it does. It comes out of all of his pores. Like, it pours out of him. So I like to believe there's some straining, and then, like, occasionally, like, there's blockage, so there's some squirt sounds.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I took this very far, but,
yeah, no, that what if he, like, constipates because he's got, like, one particular, like, elbow joint is getting kind of stubborn, so he's just like, give me a minute!
Arthritis.
Okay.
Full of fluid. I mean,
feels so good when it comes out. You think when he sits down after he puts on the armor, it feels really, really good? Like, after you take a huge crap, you kind of just sit down. And,
it's like if you took a crap with your soul. That's what getting the armor on feels like.
Nice. I like it. Well, let's let's try to, I guess, move through the some of the plot points of the movie. One of the things I thought was classic and to be expected in a movie with, like, all ensembles have, like, a mandatory, you know, recruit scene where they go to each character. I loved all of them. I thought that Hulk's recruitment scene was very appropriate. And I loved how, even though it was super intense, especially when he did a little prank on her, like don't lie to me. Like,
don't lie to me.
Yeah, I was really impressed with ScarJo's performance overall in the movie. Like, she seemed legitimately scared.
And I agree. Like, it's kind of weird in that sequence because, you know, as an avid reader of the comics, like, you know, the Black Widow, she's a fucking hard ass. Like,
Yeah.
nothing really gets under her skin. She's always in control. Like, she's the person everybody turns to when they're losing their shit. And, like, her and Nick Fury are playing a game of chess while the world's exploding. So to see that kind of human element to her was a bit different. Just from being like an avid comic book fan, I was like, come on now, nothing riles the widow.
Well, but see, I think that gave gravitas to the Hulk's danger. I think it's because she's so cool and collected. It made that scene mean that much more. Also, another thing to remember is that because it's a film, this is where they kind of have to kind of pull all the stops. So it makes sense that they'd have these moments where these characters are tested in a way that would be a little bit out of their comfort zone. So I actually loved that scene, especially being so early on in the movie, because you get an idea throughout the rest of it. It's like, retroactively, you think, wow, the Hulk really is that fucking scary.
Which you also have to take into consideration, you make a good point, because in the comics, you know, someone turning into a gigantic green rage monster is pretty fucking common. So, like, you just know that's what you're getting into when you join S.H.I.E.L.D. But in this world, you know, she's used to interrogating people. She's a spy. She's not really, you know, a field operative. So having that, I feel it wasn't that uncharacteristic. But at the same time, it was a little like, again, the unappreciative comic book geek inside of me is like, that wouldn't happen in the comics.
Well, it probably did happen in the comics when they first met, though, right? When this shit first... the thing is, we never get that story when things first started happening.
And it wouldn't really gel that well just because of the nature of her character and how she kind of progressed within comics. Like, she kind of came on the scene after these other characters, these fantastic, like these superheroes were established. Like, that's just the world. You either roll with the punches or you're soft.
Right. I think that if we were to read a comic book about Black Widow, reading about these people for the first time, and the thing I thought, I didn't take that much as out of character because Black Widow's a stone cold hearted whatever. I actually took it more as okay, so she knows who she's fucking with. She's done her homework. So I actually thought that was very much in line with Black Widow's character, who always tries to stay informed, being an international spy and all. Pretty much intel will save or kill you.
I've always kind of been thrown off, and again, it's just that geeky thing, but it's when you know you're going after the Hulk and you're trying to secure him to, you know, get his assistance. Really, there's nothing you could bring with you to that encounter short of a black hole that's going to take you and him out. Nothing is going to protect you from him. Like, even adamantium bullets really aren't going to save you from the Hulk. Like, it's just kind of a shitty day for you. Like, it's the worst game of Russian roulette.
When she was Russian roulette.
See what I did
all about
there?
that. Nice, bro. I love it. I was gonna say when she was like, you know, pressing on the earpiece, telling everyone to stand down, and I'm like, if I was Dr. Banner, I'd just grab the earpiece and kind of talk at him, be like, as if y'all had a choice. You know, like,
how many of you want to go home and hug your families today? Like, I like to believe, and that's one of those.
They should have cut to one of the SWAT members like peeing in his pants, like that would have, you know, like just like
that or something like, thank God it's my birthday tomorrow. Like,
and then one of them, you know, one's like, don't worry, Johnson, she's got it under control. Just hold on. You know, like, I'm scared, Frank. I'm scared too, Jimmy. You know, like, because you know it's the goddamn Hulk. You know,
there's no escaping that.
None whatsoever. And I was gonna say
that intro scene, like that character, you know, introduction was actually pretty well done. Just because you should be scared. He's the fucking Hulk. He's probably gonna turn around and smash you to bits.
Exactly. So because you're not retarded, you should be scared.
Absolutely.
But moving on, I loved also. Captain America's intro when he's like punching out the bag and then he's got all the replacements.
And throughout this film, as a straight man, I must say, everyone was looking really fucking swole. Like, even Mark Ruffalo. Dude. So, like, when I just saw him put him like, one arm, you are swole as fuck.
Dude, yeah, it's funny because in the spy pics and like in the promotional stuff, I thought Chris Evans actually looked, you know, he's lost a little bit of muscle weight.
He did. He looked kind of tiny.
Yeah, it's just the suit, bro. It hugs you that way because even that scene where he's like Listen, Tony, you gotta stop being so such an
when he was in
irrational
that little
dick.
spandex thing, I'm like, you're looking kind of swollen.
I'm
You
like,
should
holy
tighten
crap. He's got so many tumors all over his. Oh wait, they're
that.
muscles.
So many
Yeah.
tumors.
It's not tumor. Yeah, I just I love how even though they didn't have a lot of time to go in depth with all the characters, just like the little one-liners gives you such a good peek into their characters. Like when and it's a smooth transition into Thor's introduction.
Yes.
When he lands on
the little
on
Quinjet.
the little aircraft, and then like with the cargo hull, he like just like yoink, Loki's mine, bye, and then he just pieces out, and Iron Man obviously goes for the plan of attack, and then Black Widow is warning Captain America not to get involved, and he's like, these guys are basically gods. And I love his response, which was, "There's only one God, ma'am, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that." Like he's just.
I like that line, and there's some people who had a problem with it, like Captain America and the one God, and it's like
There is one God.
There is one God. His
name is Death. No, here's the thing. First of all, I don't know how many polytheistic members of the ACLU are out there,
Yeah.
so I don't know who that offended. But I would have been offended as someone who likes historical accuracy.
There was a group of people, adopted people, who were angry at the Thor line. Like, whenever there is dialogue and a joke at someone's expense, even a bad person's expense, there is someone who will get offended. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that they are offended and shortly follow up by saying, next.
Yeah.
Meh, I understand the way you feel, but that was a really fucking funny line, so you may leave.
No, it's not even a funny line. It was a great insight into an era. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
And I also loved his little exchange with Loki about last time a guy was in Germany yelling, thinking above all the other people. Didn't turn out so well. Like what I love about Captain America is that he, even though he's like lost at this point in the story, and in a sense he's a man at a time, so they say. He's still pretty, just like he was back before he became Captain America. He was very secure in his principles and in his perspective of the world. And naive or not, you have to respect, this guy who, especially towards the end when he's like, fending off and getting wounded, and is clearly out of all of them, he's the
He's the
of
most
course
vulnerable, kind of.
I mean, after the
right?
agents, obviously, because you arguably Black Widow and Hawkeye are the most vulnerable. But I loved how in spite of that, Captain America he was able to obviously showcase his talents as a tactician, as well as his strong character. I
think that it's important that it's one of the core aspects of Captain America, my favorite aspect.
Right.
I remember when I first used to start reading comic books, and I first read about the Avengers, my favorite character was Iron Man, growing up, because I watched the Iron Man cartoon growing up, and that was my first introduction to Iron Man. So I was like, he's wearing a suit of armor. This guy's like a man and a fucking Transformer together. It's like Optimus Prime, but he's got gold, which means he's even more awesome. So that was my understanding of the character, and then I started reading comics. And once I started, getting older and more mature and, starting to read them for different things and gain different things from the stories, like Captain America and like Spider-Man, these are characters with such strong convictions.
Right,
that, that is their superpower. Like the fact that he can lift a ton, and the fact that Spider-Man can web sling, like those are secondary to the fact that their power is that they are practically incorruptible.
Yeah, and they're super determined, and their super conviction, I think, is their main power, and of course that's the moral that their story is trying to teach us, which is stick to your guns and don't compromise when it counts, because
which I think is something very important. A lot of people occasionally miss that, and
dude, our generation fucking lacks any kind of work discipline or character, dude.
If it's like self-deprecating, I always have this like kind of dilemma in my mind where I'm like, am I self-deprecating, or does my generation kind of retarded? Like
No,
in that
no,
weird
dude.
sense, like
Our generation,
our morality, our understanding of things.
no, Generation Y fucking sucks, bro. Like it's a bunch of, you know, it's like I said, our scores right now, like our test scores are an all-time low, but our self-esteem is at an all-time high.
That
so it's
seems
like,
bizarre and backwards.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the absolute worst. But
it's like all they hear from Captain America's speeches are, "You should be proud that you're a good person, and you happen to be American." And all they heard was, "Proud to be an American. Thank you very much."
Yeah, no, I that's what I love about Captain America, and it's great how everything's gone full circle because obviously it was created in a time where we were at war, and since then we've kind of realized the lack of black and white nature of the world, and now with the internet and so much information out there, we realize how gray the world really is. And Captain America, ironically, he was created and has come back in a time where we really do need a nice, strong distinction between right and wrong. And
I think that was actually played up pretty well during Civil War comic books
right,
line,
yes,
where he has this conviction of Superhero Registration Act. All superheroes need to register. You know, you can't be a vigilante anymore. And you've got Iron Man, the corporate figure, the character whose superhero identity is also immediately connected to his wealth and influence. So those two go hand in hand. He pretty much always has to stand on the government side. And then you've got Captain America, who's like, I'm not really a hero. I'm a man who stands up for what he believes in, and I just happen to wear a suit and throw a shield. But I mean, I would still fight without that. So when you have and it was one of my favorite summer arcs ever that lasted much longer than it needed to, and had far more tie-ins than it needed to. But there was a strong morality where Captain America was, one person. I believe it was during the Frontline comics. I can't remember the specific interaction, but she essentially states, Captain America, I don't know what was big at the time. I think MySpace was fading, maybe Facebook was big, but some social network websites, are stating, Captain America, you're out of touch with Americans. You're trying to uphold these, old values and things like that. And, he had this very specific statement to her, which was pretty much stating, I'm not representing the old values of being an American. I'm representing the values of just being a good person. Whether you're American or not has nothing to do with it. Just don't be a douchebag. That's my goal. That's my lesson to you.
I would love it if they did a parody of Captain America and his old American values. So he's like, yes, everyone deserves equal rights. Well, maybe except the blacks and the gays. And he just starts going down the list.
It's also got to be like that old, actually, I take that back. I want it to be progressive, yet immediately really, really far right. So it's just I believe all people are created equal, even the coloreds. I mean, I don't want them eating at the diner with me, but I think they should pay taxes. But I don't want to see one of them, making any more of those Jungle Bunny thingies with my niece. It's got to be really awkward, where it's just oh, God, are you trying to not offend me because you're doing a terrible job?
It's like, those porch monkeys have rights, too, whoa, wait a second.
Whoa, man.
Slow down there, Captain America.
Whoa. Which was funny when I was watching the film. People were asking me, hey, I know Captain America came from a long time ago. Is Captain America racist? And he actually was not, which I think was...
No, because...
Thank God. Thank you, Stan Lee.
No, it makes sense that he wasn't, also because, remember, not only was he from the 50s, but he was a weak, nerdy, weakling guy from the 50s that happened to get muscle towards the end of his 50s time. So it makes complete sense that even within his own frame of reference out in the 1950s America, he would be a lot more accepting and tolerant just because of his own lack of... because he didn't thrive growing up. He wasn't handed anything. He didn't have, the structure of somebody who would be arrogant enough to think that way.
I think one other thing you have to take into consideration is what molded him as a person. And you're right where it does deal a lot with the time period. But I think the crux of it is, the world is about to be dominated by a group of people who are very narrow-minded. And it doesn't matter if you're black, white, gay, straight, what religion you're a part of. They want to dominate us all. So I think that was a much more important aspect for him. And it was something that is the core of the character, which is, thank God, has lasted through all incarnations of the character. And all writers at least understand that's an important aspect of the character.
That's the other thing that I was going to kind of get into towards the end, is talking about the importance of all these characters, not just in the comic books and in the movies, but just as cultural icons. These are literally these are characters that personify our values. And
absolutely.
And I love how certain things just even though the more they change, the more they stay the same, and immortalizing them now more than ever on screen, I think is just proof of how paramount they are to our culture.
Gods.
Absolutely, the Greeks had Zeus, and the the Vikings had Odin and Thor. Now we have Thor too. No, what I'm saying is,
I don't see any ice trolls around.
No,
God,
what I was saying is that the Greeks had Zeus and Athena and Apollo, and we have Captain America, Superman, and Batman, and what have you. And
I'm not going to claim. I'm not going to claim Superman. Superman's clearly a pagan god. But,
well, actually,
I just greatly dislike Superman with all of my heart and soul.
The S on his chest does stand for Satan, but there's a good
I'm pretty sure
there's a good portion of the population that needs to be represented. So I don't see why not.
Fair enough.
No, but
he needs to exist, just so we have a difference of opinion.
No, I speaking of which, I am kind of looking forward to the Man of Steel, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna save that. I'm not even gonna start that rant, sir.
Yeah, no, yeah. So okay, so back to the Avengers. As far as intros, even though Tony Stark's intro was technically with Pepper Potts and in the building and him, I thought his real intro was when he
was him douchebagging it up in Germany.
Yeah, when he was backing up Captain America in Germany and playing AC/DC, like hacking into Black Widow's ship and playing AC/DC was awesome.
The thing about it with Iron Man's character, it's almost like you were born at the right time in the right era with Robert Downey Jr. because
yes,
and it's weird because actually over time, like, he's kind of warped the persona of Iron Man, which is really weird. Because
not at all, man. The contribution back to the source material is one of the best things about all these movies.
Here's the thing, though, because Iron Man's, like, it's hard to describe. And what I mean by that is Iron Man's a bit more authoritative, and in some ways he was a lot more reserved, a lot more right-wing than the way Tony Stark's portrayal of him is. And he's actually kind of centered Iron Man. He's actually brought in Iron Man more centrist. He was actually a little bit more to the right wing, where,
Well, it depends on the incarnation. Wasn't there an actual story where the government wanted to get a hold of his armor, like in Iron Man 2?
Oh yeah, there were tons of those, but at the same time, like that was pretty much the Armor Wars, where the government has illegally taken aspects of his armor, and of course, what does Iron Man do? Iron Man takes his tech back. The main issue.
Actually, I was going to say, small government is a right-wing ideal, so maybe that's not too far off.
It was, but like at the same time, it was the way he handled that. Now, for example, in the films, he was just like, "No, you can't have my tech. Fuck off." And he's kind of justified, because what would they do with that tech? They would, they would just start stormtroopering and trying to end wars and freedom and terrorists and all that kind of jazz. But within the comics, you get a different take on it, and it's a take of. He's still trying to preserve that, but at the same time, it's how he goes about doing it. And one of the things that was the most jarring for me, because, I was still relatively young when I read the Armor Wars, and it's when the Vault, like, there are a handful of super prisons, in the Marvel Universe. There are about 4 of them. And one of the main ones is called the Vault. And in the Vault, they're the guardsmen. And the guardsmen are security guards who are wearing a variation of Iron Man's armor. It's pretty much the only thing kind of protecting them from these villains in there. And all these villains are in maximum security cells, but if shit goes south, you aren't going to be able to taser Venom into fucking submission.
Right.
And Iron Man went in there and took all of their tech. And there was a massive breakout, and a whole shitload of guards got killed. It led up to Iron Man being one of the... that makes him the second member to have been expelled from the Avengers. So of the founding members, Iron Man and Ant-Man, I believe, are the only 2 members to have ever been expelled from the Avengers due to crimes.
Was Pym Ant-Man, was he expelled because he kept beating his wife, or was it
a bunch of things? But yes, beating his wife was one of them. Beating his wife was one, and then after that,
dude, did you hear rumors about Evelyn?
Better,
those rumors?
Better. He ended up creating a villain to attack him at his hearing so that he could defeat them, and it snowballed from there. It just
What an
went really
asshole.
far south. Absolutely. That's
Dude,
that character.
did you hear those early rumors that Ant-Man and Wasp were going to be in the Avengers and that
Yeah, no,
Eva
absolutely
Longoria
not.
was going to be
I'm
cast
glad
as
that
Wasp?
Nope. Don't let that. Nope. That's all I have to say. Nope.
Right. Well, those are rumors going around, and I'm like thinking if they cast Eva Longoria as Wasp, I will not feel sad when Hank has to beat her up.
I'm going to say, honestly, spreading a rumor that vile is akin to emailing someone like a chain letter about if they don't do this, their firstborn child will die.
Yeah.
But I'm just not a big fan of Ant-Man or the Wasp. Like, when they were like, we can't fit them into the film, I was not heartbroken about that at all.
Hell no. No. It's funny. The roster for the Avengers is the one that I predicted back in 2006, and I'm like, yeah, I hope this happens. And
I like that they filled the 2 spots with the Black Widow and Hawkeye.
I loved Hawkeye. We didn't get a chance to really talk about Hawkeye, and I thought utilizing him as the sort of under mind control temporary villain was a genius way to kind of play him out. And now he's got this cool kind of chip on his shoulder, and it makes all his moves more redemptive. And in spite of all like the colorful, awesome money shots that this movie's full of. My favorite is Hawkeye falling backwards in midair and shooting the grappling hook arrow. I thought that's just a really powerful shot. And I'm
going to say my favorite shot for him was the one where he's calling out, shots and everything, and he's just not looking and just fires that one blind arrow
the one behind him. They can't bake worth a damn. That was awesome.
I think I really enjoyed the portrayal of the character. They gave him clearly a lot more inspiration for the character from the Ultimate version of Hawkeye versus the traditional version. Clearly. And I'm okay with that because
you can't have two ex-assassins.
Say that again?
You can't have two ex-assassins. I feel like because Hawkeye he used to be kind of a villain, or at least the guy who posed as
he was introduced as a villain, but he was more of a thief villain than anything else.
Right. So like
I feel that out of the 2 variations of him, I prefer the mainstream version of him as he currently stands, not his origins. His origins are kind of like too campy. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't make any sense. It would be way out of place. He was a member of a group of villains called the Circus of Crime.
Yeah,
he was trained by the swordsman.
I think I read
so
you
got it's weird. It wouldn't make sense. So
it would be distracting.
It was a pretty easy decision to choose which source material to use.
And I loved how they carefully kind of navigated around both, the ultimate Marvel kind of the Ultimates, I guess, storyline with the other kind of mainstream line of comics. So I thought they did an incredible job, and it's such a difficult balancing act. I couldn't have come up with a clever way to kind of put all these people together, and I think it's a good time to kind of, because we're almost out of time, but I definitely want to talk about Loki. And I loved, earlier while we were in non-spoiler mode, I wanted to mention one of my favorite lines is when Hulk just beat the shit out of a Loki and said, puny god. Like, that was great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which I loved. It was just like, and Frank kept pointing it out to me, Joss Whedon's not a fan of monologues.
Something happens.
And throughout the entire film, anytime a character was about to build up into a monologue, they were pretty much shut down through some random act, and that would be my favorite random act of please no monologue.
That's pretty much what he did. It reminded me of when, I don't know if you ever saw the Academy Award-winning movie Jason X. It's the one where when you're the bitches in the sleeping bag just beat the shit out of the tree. That was so
with the sleeping bag.
So funny.
It was less like he was
a
beating
fly
Loki
with, like, Loki's head,
as much as he was using Loki to beat the
swat him.
I think Loki's portrayal was it.
I would say theatrical,
to a degree,
not
like
forced.
a bit forced,
it was
but not
theatrical,
really. And
but
what I
I
mean
thought
by that
it was
is
definitely called for.
And it's acceptable, but it's weird. I'll give you theatrical because it seemed weird where it's just like, so Loki, you remember how you kind of almost killed our father
and committed genocide of your own people,
and then you found your real father, and then you killed him, and then you committed genocide, and then I was like, don't be a douchebag, and you're like, fuck off, and you threw yourself off the
Sure.
Bifrost. Then when I meet you, like, let's say this film takes place 9 months later, you make it seem like I threw you off the Bifrost. Like, it's like everyone warned you. No, no one
really
warned me.
out of. Ironically, he's in different
just come back home,
parallel universes. But you really need to come back to reality because you're pretty fucking, like it's just I find it very interesting that the guy who's jumping,
you're making
like
this really
through different
I'm gonna be real, bro.
Different alternate universes. It has no grasp of reality and in terms of like actions and consequence and accountability, and it's what I've always liked about these string of specifically the Marvel movies is that pretty much every Marvel character is some sort of kind of psychological defect personified. With the Hulk, it's obviously anger. With Tony Stark, it's narcissism and arrogance, and with Loki, delusion's a good one. And ironically, Loki is the master of what?
Mischief.
And illusions.
Yeah, illusions.
So I thought it was a really clever take on it. But let's start talking. I mean, obviously, people who listen to this love and listen and watch the Avengers, so we don't have to go by beat. I don't want to make so much a review as much as a commentary on. So now, I think for the last few minutes that we're going to be on, I'd love to talk about what you think Avengers 2 will be about. Obviously, Thanos will be involved.
Honestly, I am honestly at a complete loss for words. I don't know where they'll take it. And what I mean by that is
that's a first.
It's such a difficult thing to like kind of top. And Joss Whedon, he's mentioned before, like his goal is not to top the film. His goal isn't more explosions and more buildings and more giant monsters. He's aiming for more of a intimate film where we know these characters, we know they're a group. What is the fallout of you all being a gigantic group? Kind of like what was the escalation thing, where it's like we're trying to make these weapons of mass destruction. Well, this group is a galactic weapon of mass destruction. So now what are the consequences of having something that powerful?
I smell a little hint of the Infinity Gauntlet, especially because they made a cameo in Thor.
Definitely. I take that back. The fan in me wants the Infinity Gauntlet, but the fan who read the Infinity Gauntlet storyline doesn't so much. It's like, too powerful of a tool.
You think maybe they're gonna okay, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is exactly why I wanted you to be on board for this podcast specifically, because I was going to ask you, I didn't read any comic books with Thanos in it. I'm more of a DC guy, and by that I mean I pretty much only read Batman and Mark Millar comics. But I want to ask you, was Thanos the guy who held that big tournament where whoever can beat him will spare the Earth or whatever?
That was the Beyonder, and that was the Secret Wars. But at the same time, kind of relevant. Because Thanos is like above that. Like Thanos is the ultimate calculator in the Marvel universe. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are other characters on his scale, but imagine for those fans who are fans of the Game of Thrones, imagine Littlefinger.
I was going to ask you really quick, where does Thanos fit between Apocalypse and Galactus?
I'm going to say on par with Galactus. And what I mean by that is Thanos is a galactic threat, but not always consciously. And what I mean by that is Apocalypse has like this kind of weird chip on his shoulder where he feels that he's the ultimate evolution of, mutant kind, and, eventually he'll take over the universe. But his goal really is just to dominate the shit out of the Earth.
Okay.
Whereas Thanos is like, I want to dominate the universe, but not really like to sit on a throne. It's weird. It's like he just wants to manipulate it. It's kind of like somebody who masters taking a clock apart and putting it back together. It's a mixture of I want all this knowledge, but I also want to be able to manipulate it at my whim. And what I mean by that...
So he wants to be the puppet master, not the king.
Yes, but at the same time he knows that the best way to be the puppet master is from the seat of the throne.
Right. Oh, well we'll see, I guess. So what what were the? Oh man, it sucks because we're really running out of time, and I kind of want to
just edit all the stupid shit out.
Impossible, bro. It's too deep seated. But so I would say, do you think you'll probably watch the Avengers one more time before it leaves theaters?
I may try and catch it on like a dollar theater, like in a California club where it's like $4.50. Because I mean, I watched it the first time, and then I watched it in 3D just for the hell of it to see like what was really done differently. And they did a pretty decent job with the 3D conversion, considering what most people do, where they just make the film
I thought it was
shitty.
I thought they did a great job, and I think it helped that it was so kind of CGI heavy. Good CGI, but it was CGI heavy, so the transition was relatively smooth. I was gonna say, so if you had to give it an overall grade, what would you? I mean, F through A through F. What would you give? What would you grade? And no qualifications. No, well, for a comic book movie, whatever. No qualifiers. What would you grade Avengers?
Avengers, I'm going to give a strong B+, like practically A-.
Okay.
And it's just for some minor things. I mean, as a comic book fan, I thought it was an A, but like to really judge it as a film by itself compared to other films, I feel it was a strong film. It wasn't like the greatest film that ever was. Now, as a comic book fan, greatest comic book film by far, S ranking.
Really?
Yeah.
Better than Dark Knight?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it is.
Whoa.
Dark Knight's a better film, but it's not my favorite comic book film. Not at the moment. Now, Dark Knight Rises, who knows? But
yeah, we'll see.
I really enjoy Dark Knight, but at the same time, like, I could only watch a Dark Knight so many times back to back. I could probably watch the Avengers like back to back for just hours on end.
Interesting.
Like I could watch Dark Knight. I'll say 5 times back to back. I could probably watch Avengers at least 8 times back to back.
That's funny. Well, I've actually have seen The Dark Knight 8 times back to back.
That's because you're a beast.
It holds up.
That's because you don't care about your body.
Both those things you said is what she said.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah. I see what I did there. All right, excellent. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming by. This whole thing flew by real quickly. And we definitely got to do this again. Obviously Spider-Man's coming up, so I'm gonna tap you in for that.
I've got some high expectations for that, honestly.
Excellent. We'll probably do like a Gear Up podcast for just the future of Marvel movies or the future of comic movies in general. So I'm glad I set this precedent, dude. You've been great. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, fans. Fuck me. Fuck me. It's the fans that make this work.
Hopefully we'll get. Maybe
give me some sweet sponsorship dollars, fans. Start listening and clicking on everything. Click on everything.
Everything. Never stop clicking.
Turn your script blocker off and click on everything.
Actually, this reminds me to tell everybody to go ahead and Felix, have you had a chance to Facebook my Turns Out Productions Facebook group?
I have. I am glad that I didn't have to lie about that statement. I actually saw it. I'm like, nice podcast, like.
Excellent. Yes. So everyone, please, who's listening, go ahead and Turns Out Productions, the Facebook group. And until next time, thank you all for listening. Hold fast and stay sharp.
Brain dead from boredom, I'm led to distraction, scratching.